Welcome to Frequency. I'm Jenni Field.
And I'm Chuck Gose. Frequency is your go-to for real talk about comms, culture, and employee experience beyond the buzzwords and straight to what matters. What matters this week, Jenni, is we have 0 reports to talk about on this week's episode. We're going to talk about McKinsey saying AI agents are the biggest organizational shift since the Industrial Revolution. 72% of formal culture change initiatives produce no meaningful improvement in trust, engagement, or retention. Bruce Daisley has the receipts. The Economist is covering the war on PDFs, which sounds like a niche tech fight until you realize what most employees need to find locked-in format AI can't reliably read. And Jack Dorsey just cut 40% of Block's workforce and said most companies will do the same within a year.
I'm excited about that one because I feel like you have views. Before we get into that, one of the things I wanted to talk about was the Goldilocks era, which is something I've been writing down. I feel like I've said it again and again and again in the last sort of 3-4 weeks, because it seems like internal comms is being asked to get things just right. So almost that you've got to juggle a little bit of change, a bit of culture, a bit of engagement, a bit of risk, all of this stuff, but you've kind of got to do it all at the same time. And it just makes me think of Goldilocks and the 3 bears and how it was all about the porridge being just right in terms of temperature. And I feel like that's where we are. I feel like there is you've got to balance it all. You've got to balance it all at just the right amount, and then you will be able to be successful, which feels very unrealistic, but that feels like the message that's being given everywhere today. And I know I wrote that to you in one of our WhatsApp chats this week as well.
Yeah, I wonder at times though, but also Goldilocks had choices.
Yes.
She got to choose which porridge was too hot or too cold.
She
or
did.
Which bread was too big or too little or whatever. So I don't know. If it's Goldilocks era, embrace it.
Embrace the choices.
Choose what's best for you.
I like your twist on that. Thank you. Right, go on, kick us off.
Yes, the agentic organization. McKinsey describes the agentic organization as the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution, and the numbers they cite are pretty striking. Teams of 2 to 5 people could now be supervising 50 to 100 AI agents. One bank claims it's cutting time and effort by up to 50% on legacy modernization. Sounds a little ironic there. Mm-hmm. Another running know your customer compliance with 10 agent squads. The model flips the org chart. Humans still sit above the loop for strategic oversight, but with AI handling the execution. The people implications are where listeners should be paying attention. McKinsey argues performance management anchored in simple task completion is over, and that the new system tracks how well people orchestrate agents and deliver outcomes. HR systems become repositories for agents, not employees, and the definitions of organization and employee become fluid. Jenni, my question is simple. Are we just now living in the Matrix?
Oh, yes. I was smiling the whole way through you were talking about this, because I feel like the fact that they're talking about the fact that this is the biggest shift since the Industrial Revolution, yet we're not talking about fundamentally changing how we work. All we're talking about is replacing people with technology, right? Which is what they got wrong in the Industrial Revolution. They went, oh, okay, we lay factories out like this, so we'll just put machines in where these are and it'll just do that work. So it was completely inefficient. It didn't do what it needed to do. And loads of time was lost to this sort of lift and shift. Whereas actually when you get the benefits of that is because you're reimagining that factory. So rather than mirroring the layout with then, machines, you reimagine what that factory should look like because of the technology and the machinery you've now got, and it completely transforms it. The irony of this just made me laugh, because I just thought we're doing exactly the same thing. We're going, oh, rather than this number of people, we'll have this number of agents. Like it's the same issue. You're not looking at how work needs to change as a complete construct of society and the systemic changes around that and education and all the knock-on effect that this has around society at large, and reimagining all of that and what AI is going to do, which I know is massive. But that's what the shift needs to be. And I think if we keep talking about, oh, it's people being replaced by AI and we're just going to make it not one person, but 10 agents, that isn't the change that needs to happen. The change that needs to happen is much bigger about the role of work, how much time it takes, what's a working week. All of these things need to be a much bigger conversation. But I did enjoy their chart about tracking the differences. I like a good chart, and it sort of tracks the differences between them all. And I thought that was very good. But to me, we are living in the matrix because we're not really realizing the reality of what's possible, I don't think.
But here's my take on this. I think it has happened, just not in the way that we're connecting the dots to. So if you look at manufacturing and the role that quote unquote robots have taken on the factory floors, where it did replace people's jobs or move people into other areas where they were more sort of supervising the robots or monitoring these things, a lot of times for safety reasons, for example. A lot of us, just the professionals out there, just sort of rolled with it. Well, of course, that just makes sense. But now that it's coming for the jobs of accountants, HR leaders, or engineers, they're like, whoa, wait a minute. That was cool if it happened to the manufacturing base, but not to me. So yeah, I do think it's very far-fetched, just sort of like way out there when you think about people managing these robot employees or these agents, but it's kind of happened in some other industries.
Yeah, I completely get that. And I do think that, you see the arms in the car manufacturing places kind of doing stuff. And I do think that is true. I just think the whole world of work needs to change. I think that the whole construct of, Monday to Friday and what humans are it's just way bigger than just that. And maybe that was the start of it in terms of some of those jobs changing. Now it's having an impact into the office workers, and that change, to me, that really shifts what work is. And I think that's the difference, is what is work?
And I guarantee you, these teams of people that are allegedly going to be supervising these agents, there's still going to be CEOs that are like, you got to be in the office 5 days a week to monitor your 50 agents out there.
Yeah, if I don't see that little light blinking that you're actually there as a little robot, I'm not going to believe you're really there.
Next up, the more you talk about culture, the less people believe you. Bruce Daisley, former VP at Twitter EMEA and author of The Joy of Work, has a provocative thesis. The more organizations talk about culture, the less employees believe it. Over-communicating culture signals, things like values posters, culture decks, all hands moments, can actively erode the trust they're supposed to build. This is more of a credibility problem, not as much a messaging problem. This lands at the moment when culture has never been more discussed or less trusted. Organizations are producing more culture content than ever, often in direct proportion to the problems they're trying to paper over. Daisley's frame flips the usual instinct. Instead of asking how to communicate culture better, ask what would it look like to stop talking about it and simply start doing it. Jenni, Daisley's thesis is essentially that culture talk has an inverse credibility effect. The louder you say it, the less people believe it. Mm-hmm. Have you seen this play out in your own work? And if so, what actually cuts through to people?
So I feel like this links really nicely to a conversation we had a few episodes ago where I was talking about the post from Rob Briner and the culture versus behavior debate in terms of you need to focus on behavior change, not culture change. And this feels like it's linked. Like the age of culture campaigns, I think, is disappearing. And I think I wonder if it's because it's just become kind of noise. So if I think about some of the client work I've been doing recently, where I've been doing work on leadership credibility, separate to that work is some culture work going on, which I've been looking at. And it feels like we're still doing things sort of separately. So I'm looking at credibility. Someone else is looking at culture. Someone else is looking at communication. And I'm sort of trying to get my arms around all of it to say, look, we've got to talk about all of this together, because there's not a clear outcome for the culture piece. I don't think we're translating that back into behaviours and competencies. I don't think we're looking at how that fits into how you're communicating. And also, what about the values that you had before and how do they weave in? So I think it's become a big word that doesn't have a huge amount of meaning. And I think it also just feels like it's kind of over there, which I know we talked about before. Like it's not about me, it's about culture, and that's something else. I don't think people realize that they are part of culture. And I think that's something I talk about to teams a lot, is if you don't like the culture where you work, you can change that. That's part of you can do that. But I think the fact that he's saying that the more you talk about it, the less people believe you, I get, because the proof is in the pudding, as they say. You can talk a good game, but if you're not actually doing it and really showing up and really thinking about what that really means and looks like for how you need to change your behavior as a leader, then people won't believe you.
Yeah, I wonder too if there's a bit of overcompensation that comes in here when you hear people say, no, but our culture is really good. No. Our values are really strong. If you have to say those things, are they really?
Yeah.
It's sort of like how a funny person doesn't have to tell you they're funny. You just know that they are. If a company has a really good culture, you don't have to be told that. And if you are told that, is there some overcompensation?
Yeah, and I think also, and I was saying this to a friend of mine the other day who was going for a promotion at work, and I think we were talking about different companies and different people had come in, and some people were leaving and saying, like, don't go for the promotion because it's, it's really toxic and all that stuff. And I just said to her, just ignore that. Like, I've worked in places where people have said, oh, this is really toxic for me, and I've had a lovely time. And that is not because I like a toxic environment, but I've got different values. I've got different personality. I've got different, beliefs, whatever it is, that meant that in that environment, I actually, I learned a lot. Yes, it was challenging and I pushed myself in different ways. But to other people, they were like, this is not for me. I'm out. I'm done. Like, you can't apply the same lens, I suppose, is what I'm saying. Like, we all thrive in different environments. And I think that's really important as well.
Next up, Jenni, I don't know if you know this or not, but there is a war against PDFs. The Economist asked whether the PDF will survive the AI revolution, and the answer is genuinely uncertain. More than 2.5 trillion PDFs exist. That's with a T. The format won because the IRS adopted it for tax forms, but LLMs are regularly, quote unquote, bamboozled by them misreading columns, getting confused by headers, and oftentimes even hallucinating. 1 in 5 email-based cyber attacks are also routed through PDF attachments. However, the PDF supporters fire back. The problem isn't the file type, it's the developers. Adobe and Google have both built AI tooling designed to handle PDFs correctly. For communicators, HR, and leaders, the PDF is the backbone of employee documentation, things like handbooks, policies, benefits guides. If your organization is deploying AI-powered employee tools and underlying documents or PDFs, you may be building self-service on a broken foundation. And right now, ownership of that problem, who audits and converts the document infrastructure, is often genuinely nobody's job. Jenni, the PDF has become a bit of a generational joke, often saying, like, what generation knows how to turn something into a PDF? But a post-PDF future means someone has to own that transition of decades of documentation. Is that a comms problem, an IT problem, or a change management problem?
I think it's probably a mixture. I was going to go with, I think it's a comms problem, but I think it's probably a bit of a mixture. But again, this was making me chuckle because I remember the war against PDFs when Digital Workplace first came in, and you couldn't search PDFs then. So we kept saying to people, you need to take your policy, HR, because that's where most of the policies are, and you need to turn it into digital content. These were the conversations I would have. And they'd go, what do you mean by digital content? And I'd say, you need to take it out of a PDF and put it directly into the page that someone's looking at so it's searchable. They were conversations 15 years ago. So I'm really surprised that this is still going on today, because I don't think we ever really embraced that kind of digital content piece. But I think this is twofold. I think you've got the comms problem of things being accessible and choosing the right medium for the message. I think you've got the IT problem of actually the technology being able to search a PDF and being able to do that. Like, I feel like that should be able to be a thing now. I'm not sure it's a change management problem because, change is constant. So it's just part of everybody's wheelhouse now. It just makes me smile because I think this was 15 years ago we had this. Are we going to be doing it in another 15 years, or is AI the thing that's really going to make us stop using PDFs for our policies to be able to search? I don't know.
Yeah, I will admit, I didn't know there was a war on PDFs. So I went back and did a little bit. If you had to guess, Jenni, when do you think the very first PDF was created? Throw out a guess.
I think 2005.
1993.
Oh,
the very first PDF was created. And when you think about what a PDF did, was it made it accessible. Like from a visual standpoint, you could easily share a PDF. It didn't matter what platform people were on, whatever it is. What I didn't know was how problematic PDFs were from a cyber attack standpoint. Like I wasn't aware of that. I'm a bit surprised that AI is struggling with them as much as it is, but maybe that's the design and layout and how they're structured. When I think back to last week's episode, when you shared 4 reports, all 4 reports were PDFs to download and sort through.
Yes.
So what does that future look like? Is it not a file format? Is it something else that's out there? So I think it's a good thing for people to start thinking about what does that structure of content and information look like going forward so that it is accessible, searchable, all the ables.
But there's a lot. I love an able, but there's some things. This is really making me think now, right? Because I'm thinking about the reports, and I had to put in, my email address to get the reports because people want to collect those to then be able to talk to you, right? I get that. I have a business where we do that. So there is that element. So if I've got to put my email address in because you want that to be able to talk to me, how are you then going to serve up that content to me that I can read? Also, whilst I didn't print these reports, my intention was to print them, but my printer was not having a good day. So I just used my Remarkable tablet where I can scribble on them anyway. But how do you then take that and then print it? There's a lot of questions for me over what's the alternative to make that content truly accessible in the way that it is as a PDF to do that. And I don't know if that's different based on my use for that versus an internal use for it in terms of policies and stuff like that. Because to me, that should just be digital content. You can have a little button that says print this if you need to, but there's no reason for that to be a PDF internally, which is kind of, the thing that this is about, which is that internal piece. I can't see a reason for it.
Yeah, now that I'm sort of self-reflecting on it, there's a bit of laziness when it comes to a PDF. It's like, we'll just PDF it.
Yeah.
Just PDF it, which got to be the generational joke of I think it was like the millennials out there where you were all saying you're getting paid less than someone who doesn't know how to PDF something. That maybe this is now the change that needs to happen. So I think it really is about accessibility and putting content in the best structure and format for people. And we've defaulted to PDF, but maybe that's not the right way going forward. I just didn't know there was a war.
Well,
that was new to me.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very strong word for PDFs, but I also, it's making me think whether this is the new email. Everyone's like, email needs to die and we need to get rid of it and we need to, replace it with stuff. Maybe PDFs just having their email day. If
a fifth of cyber attacks come from a PDF, I could see organizations just simply saying no, we're not, we're blocking anything with a .pdf going forward.
Yeah. But also I feel like the technology should just be better. That's my answer to everything. If PDFs have been around a long time, to your point, 1993, I think you said.
Yeah.
How has the technology not evolved to protect against that? What's not being done to do that? If they're so heavily used, then how has that kind of just been accepted in that community to be it's fine. We just accept that, we could get a cyber attack.
I think it's just more into the cyber attack element, how easy it is to bury things in a lot of different file formats that are out there. And I think PDF is one that we're picking on today. But I think it just might be good reflection time to think, is that the right format for content for your employees?
Yeah, I think specifically for employees, I can't see a need for it. And I do think that things should be a lot more accessible. And I had this conversation 15 years ago, so I'll keep having it.
And finally, Jack Dorsey cuts 40% of Block's workforce and says most companies will follow within a year. Block, the parent of Square, Cash App, and Afterpay, is cutting 40% of its workforce from over 10,000 to just under 6,000. Dorsey's shareholder letter named AI directly, intelligence tools have changed what it means to build and run a company, and most businesses will reach the same conclusion within a year. The stock immediately jumped 24%. There were 2 interesting LinkedIn reactions worth noting, though. Ted Mers cataloged 5 things Dorsey got right in the execution on the announcement. Things like generous severance, which included 20 weeks plus equity, 6 months of healthcare, $5,000 stipend. A single announcement rather than rolling cuts. They kept Slack open for employees to say goodbye. There was also a live thank you session, which I would love to know how that went. And, which I don't agree with this, the entire announcement was done in lowercase, which was bizarre. Brian Elliott of Charter, though, flagged a key line, quote unquote, using the tools we're building. So Dorsey's company sells AI-enabled tools. So was this announcement simply also product marketing? Here's a bit more. Block tripled their headcount during COVID from 4,000 in 2019 to just over 10,000 by 2025. Mm-hmm. And the stock is actually down 75% over 5 years. Goldman noted the cut takes Block back to 2020 levels. In Elliott's post, he also did a comparison to Klarna, which is a more instructive story, where Klarna managed a 30% reduction through natural attrition, and their average employee compensation went up 60%. Revenue per employee rose 3 to 4 times, and they reversed their AI talent strategy twice in 3 years as the technology has evolved. Dorsey is making the opposite bet, all in, all at once on this. There's a lot going on with this announcement, Jenni. We have been very critical, or maybe more me has been very critical, of how companies communicate layoffs. Is this the right way, or is this a better way?
Okay, so there's a few things in here. When I was reading the article, and it's a bit confusing because the article seems to say that the layoffs are happening later on in the year, like in the summer, yet it seems to be written about like it's happened and people have said goodbye. So I'm not 100% sure in terms of how that's all happening, because it feels like it's not all at once. So I also think that this is product marketing. So I think that they inflated during COVID, which a lot of people did. A lot of people grew during the pandemic, and then they flatlined. And so then you have to think about, okay, was that growth then sustainable? Do we need to bring it down? What are we doing? This feels like they inflated, maybe over-recruited. Now, actually, the reality is that needs to come back down and they can do things slightly differently. I'm not convinced. It feels like it's an organization that, has inflated, needs to reduce its headcount, is going to use AI as a reason because that's what they do. There is an element of embracing the tools that you sell, right? I think anyone that, even if I think about people that are in internal communications agencies or consultancies, you kind of think their internal comms must be excellent because they sell it. It's that same principle must apply here. Like if they're building the AI tech, they should be using that and reinforcing it. I just don't think there's enough use cases for this, but someone does have to go first. And I think it's a line that's, I think it's just a bit marketing-y. I think. Yeah.
One of my new favorite buzzwords out there is AI washing. And I think this is an example of that, of labeling AI, like you said, as product marketing, to say like, oh, we don't need these people anymore because of the tools that we've developed. And you're going to be this way too. And I think there's an element where Dorsey has been propped up a bit as a leader, where I think there is going to be a lot of followers now. They're like, oh, wait a minute. We can cut 40% of our workforce too without really looking at the business strategy of it. So I think that labeling this as part of AI when you're the one that chose to grow this amount, and it's not necessarily I'm not aware of their business hurting. Yes, their stock price was. So other than just saying like, it reminds me a bit of when Elon Musk cut like whatever 60 to 80% of Twitter just because.
Yeah.
Now, it's proven that, yes, you cut those costs. In theory, Twitter is now more profitable, but also Twitter is a disaster, right? Like what Twitter once was is not the same. Are they still making money and maybe more profitable? Absolutely. So if that's your goal, congratulations. It's now a really crappy platform out there. So just cutting people and becoming more profitable doesn't necessarily mean that's a good business story.
No. And it says in the article, Block says it, was trying to find it. Block says it's now aiming for north of 2 million in gross profit per head, roughly quadruple where that figure sat before COVID. Goldman noted that the cuts appear concentrated in engineering roles rather than revenue generating or regulatory positions, consistent with Block leaning in on its in-house AI platform, Gose, to replace that work. Apparently I can't say that word normally. So it's the profit piece, and it's like, is that profit going to be reinvested? Is that profit going to be going towards things that impact the greater good in the world, or is it just greed? And then that's not being a good contributor to society. And I don't again, to what end? So I find it AI washing. I love that term. I love that we didn't talk about this. I just knew you had a strong view on it, but I didn't know what it was. But as you were talking about it, it feels like it's just greed and it's AI washing. Is that a term you've made up, or is that a real term?
No, I can't take credit for that.
Oh,
I can't take credit for that. The fact that you pointed out that their profit per employee is going to quadruple means they were profitable per employee before.
Yeah.
So this is pure greed. And you make that greedy announcement all in lowercase.
Yeah.
This was the entire announcement was in lowercase. I don't know if this is a company style thing. I'm just reading this and I'm like, what is this devolved into? Like, I just don't understand it. And
there's no need for that. Like that sort of behavior, I just think is doing it for effect. Like it grammatically, that's really hard to read. You know, there's people that will be using accessibility platforms and stuff to be able to read things, and it's entirely unnecessary. And I just don't understand why you would. Just it feels truly odd. And then it makes me, it just all feels like one big gimmick, really. And I think it almost comes back to that believability and that credibility and all of those things. I mean, I do think that the generous severance and all of those things are really good. But I think let's come back to this story in 6 months and then let's see what the current news is about what's going on over there. Because I really think we should revisit it in 6 months and see what's going on.
And with every gimmick, there's somebody that loses. And in this case, it's these 40%, these 4,000 employees who are now losing their job because of a gimmick. That wraps up this week's articles. Jenni, share with us, what is your latest freak out?
So my freak out is a few weeks ago, I sort of teased the fact that Comms Reboot would be coming back to Toronto, and it was still quite early days, and we just put my email address in the show notes. But I can now confirm that Comms Reboot is coming back to Toronto. It's on the 17th of June. So I will be coming out to facilitate that with the team at Contact Monkey, who are hosting us again. We've also got some fabulous facilitators and partners, which includes you from iCology. We've also got Priya Bates from Inner Strength. We've got Andrea from Vision to Voice, and we've got Pinaki from Local Wisdom. So it should be really good fun. I'm excited to be back in Toronto. It's a lovely city. It'll be my 3rd visit, so I'm really excited. And I will pop a link in the show notes if people want to come along and grab a ticket as well.
Well, my freak out, Jenni, is that you're leaving me for one episode.
For what? Yeah, you're so dramatic.
That after doing so many of these 40 plus episodes of Frequency, the next one I will be doing solo.
Yeah.
So that is to say, if you want a lot of me, come to next episode.
And if you don't, then just
and if you don't, well, please listen to Frequency anyway.
I know.
So that's my freak out. It'll be a lot of fun. I get to pick my own stories. There may or may not be reports, probably not. But
I'm excited. I'm
going to have a lot of fun with it anyway.
I'm excited. It's just worked out that way with a holiday for me, which means that it's just been too difficult to get the episode recorded. But I'll be having a delightful time having a vacation with my husband, and I will tune in to see how your single episode goes. And if it does work, then there may be times where we need to do this in the future. Maybe I have to if you're away and stuff. So yeah, it'll be fine.
Thank you all for joining us this week. All the articles that have inspired the conversation are in the show notes, and don't forget to rate and review after you've listened. Subscribe so you don't miss another episode, and pass this along to someone you think would enjoy listening or watching. You can also find Frequency on YouTube. Thank you to Poet Ali for contributing music to the show. We're back every Monday with more news, insights, and opinions about everything comms and leadership in workplaces today. Keep tuning in and turning up.